Throughout the course of school, I've been occasionally asked, how complicated is the human body? And after a little thought, I nearly always reply, don't worry, it's only about as complicated as a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! This answer nearly always provokes one of two reactions, abject confusion or abject horror. While both reactions are understandable, today I'd like to show you that comprehending both Yu-Gi-Oh! And the human body is easier than you think. So settle in, join me in cracking open a textbook or a deck box, and let's get into it. The subject of today's video is the human heart, and more specifically, the heart's electrical system. The heart is a powerful muscular organ that is primarily responsible for pumping blood through our circulatory system, and delivers oxygenated blood to our cells and tissues. For the purposes of this video, I want you to imagine the heart as an abstract duel going on between two seasoned duelists. The heart consists of two upper chambers called atria, two lower chambers called ventricles, and a number of pipes and valves that transport blood and prevent backflow into areas where the blood isn't wanted. The cells that make up the heart are a specialized form of muscle called cardiomyocytes, which have both the properties of skeletal and smooth muscle, as well as properties of their own, such as automaticity, that are not found anywhere else in the body. This unique form of muscle allows the heart to conduct electricity and contract on its own without conscious control. The effectiveness of these heart contractions can be likened to your performance at a local tournament. And while there are many factors that can affect locals' performances, just as there are many factors that can affect heart contractile strength, one of the most important factors is the strength of a player's deck. The heart has a number of internal pacemakers and systems of varying strength that set the intrinsic rate of your heartbeat, and can be compared to decks of varying tier strength. Your sinoatrial node, or SA node, located in your right atria, is like bringing a tier 1 meta threat that you've studied in depth. With an intrinsic rate of 60 to 100 beats per minute, this is your primary pacemaker that people without certain heart conditions use their entire lives. It's strong, efficient at pumping blood, and never needs a rest. Well, until it's banned. People can have stronger or weaker hearts that still operate on the SA node, and therefore have slower or faster intrinsic heart rates, with slower heart rates usually indicating greater heart health. Kinda like how when you bring a deck that you've net decked and bought on TCG Player to locals without studying it, you still go X3 drop and sell the deck. Practice makes perfect. Your atrioventricular node, or AV node for short, is located below the SA node, at the juncture between your atria and ventricles, and is a weaker but still viable site for pacing the heart, pacing at a rate of 40 to 60 beats per minute. An AV-paced rhythm is often referred to as junctional for this reason. Think of using the AV node for electrical conduction like bringing last tier's meta threat to a tournament, a solid tier 2 or 3. While at the upper ends of AV node pacing, people can still function normally and only experience some fatigue. It's close enough for some purposes, but you probably need to swap your deck out at some point. Alright, rogue duelists, buckle up, and know that I'm including myself in this section as well. Should the AV node fail, the heart falls to yet another failsafe, the bundle of His. This electrical pathway runs down the septum from the AV node between the left and right side of the heart and leads to the large muscular ventricles, where it, alongside our last system, stimulate contraction. The bundle of His is not a pacemaker, but can conduct impulses from elsewhere in the heart, often called escape rhythms, at a rate of between 40 to 60 beats per minute. While the rate is often similar to AV-paced rhythm, the origin of electrical impulses is less sustainable. Symptoms of dizziness, weakness, and poor perfusion become significantly pronounced in these patients who, if allowed to remain in such a rhythm for too long, often require percutaneous pacing or medical intervention. Think of relying on the bundle of His like bringing Rogue to regionals. And I'm not talking about like Ritual Beast or Blue Eyes. We're talking dinos. At last, we have the Purkinje fibers, the final electrical construct of the heart for our purposes. This system of specialized cells has an incredibly fast conduction rate, but poor electrical generation on its own, and paces at a rate of 20 to 40 beats per minute, at which point the heart usually begins to fail. Having a heart that paces off Purkinje fibers is like bringing Dragon Link to a locals, wholly inadequate for the demands of the format, and is going to lead to you and everyone else having a worse day. Now that we're all on roughly the same page regarding what the electrical pathways of the heart are and how they work, let's get into interpreting and understanding a simple EKG. Obviously, I have to say this video is for entertainment and should not be taken as medical advice. This is a visual demonstration of a single, complete heartbeat, start to finish, as displayed on basically any heart monitor. For the purposes of interpretation, it's broken down into different sections which represent different phases of cardiac activity, which I've taken to comparing to the phases of a turn in a duel. First, we have the P waves. This curved wave represents atrial depolarization, a medical term for the top chambers of your heart contracting and pushing out blood to the ventricles, and is like the draw phase, where the upper chambers draw on extra blood to supply to the ventricles for use later on in the turn. This phase is brief but critical, and conditions like atrial fibrillation can cause you to skip your draw phase, severely hurting your card economy, chances of winning the duel, and surviving. Next, we have the PR interval. This period of time begins just before the start of the P wave and ends just before the QRS complex, which we will discuss next. The PR interval is like the standby phase, reflecting a brief pause between the significant draw and main phases. At this point, the AV node is intentionally delaying the signal between the SA node and the bundle branches, in order to ensure appropriate timing. At this point in the duel, many mandatory effects trigger and clear the books for the main phase. Speaking of the main phase, up next we have the QRS complex. This is the main event, so to speak, of the heart, and represents ventricular depolarization. This is where the lower heart chambers, the ventricles, contract and send blood to the lungs and the rest of the body. In the same way that the main phase is the phase of the duel where the most action takes place, summoning monsters, activating spells, the QRS complex is the most active phase of cardiac conduction. Following the QRS complex, we have the ST segment, which occurs between the end of the QRS complex and the start of the T wave. This is the battle phase, a critical juncture that often decides the outcome of a duel. Any issues that the heart may have receiving oxygen, called ischemia, will reflect in this segment. Ordinarily, this segment will be flat, indicating a pause between main phase 1 and 2, but any abnormal activity in the heart can reflect here as elevation or deflection. The T wave, which follows the ST segment and is represented by another large wave, similar to the P wave but bigger, is the main phase 2. T waves represent ventricular repolarization, which is the phase of the heartbeat where the lower chambers relax to fill up with more blood later on during the next turn. Like your main phase 2, this is a time to set up and prepare for your following turns. All of the hard work of the turn is already done, and the heart and duelist are simply readying themselves for the future. Finally, we have the U wave, a small wave that isn't present in many EKGs. This represents late repolarization of some of the lower structures of the heart and is our correlation to the end phase. Most of the time, there isn't much going on here. Many players wrap up their turn in main phase 2 and pass turn, ready to go again. Only you Bell players really have to worry about this one. Well, there you have it, the heart at a glance. This action repeats over and over again, like two players engaged in a life or death duel, continuously until the heart stops. A connection of interconnected systems as simple as a DDD spreadsheet that keeps us all moving every day. I hope it goes without saying that this is all at the paramedic level. I'm not a cardiologist, and none of this is professional medical advice. I hope that you enjoyed, and remember to wash behind your ears.